check. Off to a great start. I haven't seen Derek do that once. Man, golly. I was sitting here like, well, he gave me, his iPad to use, and he was like, yeah, it's good, but it uses my fingerprint. You got to type in all the buttons to get it open, and so I'm thinking about that, and I'm like, I just crushed that, got it open. And then I just messed up the mic. Oh. Let's see, what's Derek's first joke every time? Oh, good crowd in here. You do know there's an 11 o'clock service, right? Right? Oh, yeah. Yeah, he missed it during his... I was sitting there watching his hosting time. I was like, don't you do it. That's my open. But that's my open. But anyways, good morning, OCC. My name's Austin Crockett. For those that don't know me, and I'm the worship pastor here. It's been a privilege. A year I've been here, almost exactly. Got here in May a year ago, and what a journey that has been. The first thing I want to tell you about myself, just to open up, is what Derek was saying. Life, it's all about Jesus. It's all about Jesus. And Jesus found me in my early teens. I was at a camp called Student Life at the Beach, which is now, I think, called Passion Camp. So, it's something we send our students to. I was there, and I saw... it was a guy, you may have heard, his name was Chris Tomlin and Lou Giglio. They were there, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. But I was not expecting to meet Jesus the way I met it. And everything else really faded in comparison. In that moment, Jesus changed my life. I heard about the goodness and glory of God and how through Jesus, everything was made. And how through Jesus... I was saved, and that everything in my life that I ever gone through, that it all fails in comparison to these light and momentary afflictions in life. They pale in comparison to that who is Jesus. And so it changed my life. And so everything, I decided in that day that I wanted my life to be an offering. Jesus, Lord, let my life be an offering. That's my prayer as I was getting ready to walk up here. Lord, in this moment, I know that there's so many failings in my life and things that I fall short on. Just let it be an offering. I trust you with the rest. I'm even praying that as I say it. So, if you heard nothing else today, if you walked out right now, that's the thing I'd want you to know the most about me. And that's why I started with that. But I'm from Valdosta, Georgia. Maybe some of you have heard of it. If you've ever maybe traveled up to Atlanta, you would have had to, go down I-10 and then scoot up I-75, and you would have passed through unknowingly. Not a lot going on there. Our claim to fame is like kind of a rundown theme park that some of you might have been to. Every time I talk to people, I'm like, from Valdosta, they're like, is it Wild Adventures? And I'm like, yeah, we have Wild Adventures. It's rough there. Everything's creaking as it's going around, and then I'm just like, whew. So, yeah, but that's where we're from, me and my wife, Lauren. And I came here a year ago to be the worship pastor. A few things I love. I love music. You may have guessed that. I am... not a new music fan as much. I'm much more into the older stuff. My dad was that way. He was like, when I just remember riding around in the car. Like, my first CD I ever got was Fats Domino. I don't know anybody who's like, yeah, first CD. Some of you guys are like, what's a CD? But yeah. It's funny, I'm finally at the age where I can make jokes like that. But yeah, I love, my wife Lauren, she's that way too. That's one thing that we've always gotten along on is we love old music. Just fond memories of just taking a road trip, and I don't know if you've ever just traded the phone back and forth. Like, I get a song, you get a song. We're just listening to the Eagles, the Beatles, and Elton John, and Bob Seger is one of my favorites. So that's a little, I'm an old soul, no Taylor Swift, not one Taylor Swift song. Not one. I love to cook. I love to cook. Amen. We're out. I love to cook. Barbecuing is like therapy for me. So like anytime there's a chance to just like go home and spend the day, I don't know what it is. It's just like near a grill. There's something magical about it. I act like it's really difficult work. I'm like, babe, don't ask anything of me today. I've got a barbecue. I'm barbecuing today, don't ask. And then like she'll come to check, like, do you need anything? And I'm like hopping up out of my chair and I'm like, oh, it's difficult. I don't know, babe, just, I'll let you know. No. But don't listen to that, babe. I also am a huge sports guy. I'm a big Georgia Bulldogs fan. Hey, I got a few of you in here. Yeah, not a fan of the Gators or the Noles. I pull for the Noles vicariously, sort of, but that is out loud, but inside, it's all dogs, It's all dogs. But even more than that, I'm a huge Jags fan, and I wanted to, let's go Jags. This is our year. This is it. Listen, and I didn't just jump on board because I got here and I was like, oh, what will endear me to the people? Let me get a Jags hat. No, I've been a Jags fan since day one. My dad, like Valdosta is not that far away. It's about 2 hours and 15 minutes. And when my dad found out, oh, there's a team coming to Jacksonville, he was like, I'm going to get season tickets. So we got season tickets, and I'm like this little guy. I'm like 5 years old, and that was this fond memory for me is me, my mom and dad, and my sister. My sister hated going, but I loved it. We would, go on home game Sundays, and drive down. We would tailgate. My mom would cook fried chicken. We're from South Georgia. So it'd be fried chicken, and she would cook it, and we would wrap it in tinfoil. And I don't know if you've ever done that, but in the 2-hour drive, something magical happens in that tinfoil. And when you get there, getting ready for the game, and you're pulling that chicken out, that sounds awesome. I would love to do that. Anyways, so I'm a big Jags fan. I even had a poster of Tony Baselli up in my I don't know, maybe some of you had that. There was a poster that had like a measuring, I would go in my closet and my dad would be like, you're this tall. And I would just grow and grow, and then at a certain point it started getting real depressing as I'm like measuring myself to the life-size Tony. He's like, oh, about 1 millimeter, buddy, that's good. There just came a point where I just kept being like, oh, he's always gonna be up there and I'm always gonna be down here. Anyways, but life has led me here. And just to take a moment and brag, this church is awesome. Sometimes, it's awesome. I think I've been here just a short enough time to be able to say with fresh eyes that there's something special that God is doing here. And it's not about the staff. It's a decision that has been made to say it's going to be about Jesus. Every day, we're gonna every decision we make, everything we do, we want it to be about Jesus. And if it's not about him, it's not really worth doing. And to angle everything through that. And I remember me and Lauren coming here just a couple times to help out. It was like, oh, we need someone, and I would drive down from Valdosta, and we'd have a Sunday. And the first time we did that, we drove away, and I was just like, Lauren, that was awesome. Like, that, did you feel that? And she'd be like, yeah. And it wasn't anything, but it was so simple, and it was this. I met Jesus here again. I saw him in the midst of the faces I was around, the people. So I just want to brag on this place, man. Jesus is doing something here, and jump on board. Because God, I don't have a clue where it's headed, but I know that in Jesus, the best is yet to come. So the best days are still ahead of us here. It's good. It's good stuff. I'm proud of this place. But this past year has been a journey for sure. So Derek kind of mentioned it. I don't know if you know that we are now family. It's been a ride, in fact, let me show some pictures. So, no, you thought I was going to show some embarrassing pictures of Derek or something. That would have been a great idea. This is me and Lauren on our wedding day, just under 3 years ago. And yeah, you can cheer for that. That's a good thing. Woo! Y'all, if y'all had known how long I've been praying for that day, then you would have cheered for me. The next one, you can see us. Look how happy. Oh, yeah. This is a marker of one of my favorite days of all. The best day ever, baby. Best day ever. The best day. But life is a journey. There's a lot of ups and downs. And if I could have told you, this was a culmination of many, many prayers, many, many moments that I was like, I don't know if I'm going to find the person that I'm going to spend my life with. I don't know if I'm going to figure this thing out. I mean, many, many moments of being like, it's just not happening. And here we are. And I get the privilege to stand on this stage and worship Jesus alongside of my wife. It's like better than I ever imagined. It's so good. And life's a journey. I could have never seen that coming. Not really. Not in the darkest times either. But here we are. So in the year that it took us to kind of get into our home, we bought a house over in Neptune Beach. And we don't know the layout of things. We don't realize that buying something here, you got to like cut off a leg or something. We don't know. We're just very naive. And we're like, well, we'll just find a place. And I remember we were like putting in like bids on some houses. We're like, we really want to be near our community. We don't want to, like, I don't know what we're going to do, but we'll figure it out. And we put in a bid on one house, and we didn't get it, and it was a bad day. Lauren's just like, it's a perfect house. It had a white picket fence, and it was all of that. And I'm like, I don't know, babe. I'm just feeling like a failure. I'm like, we just couldn't afford that. And then I was like, but what about this one? And I sent her this like house that is just a dumpster. It's essentially a dumpster on a lot. I mean, if you can think of it, that house needed it. I mean, like, it didn't need a roof. Yeah, it did. It needed a roof. Did it need plumbing? Yes, it needed plumbing. How was the central air conditioning? It didn't have air conditioning. No air conditioning. Let's think. What else? Electrical was bad. The walls were all like wood paneling that were like flapping. It smelled bad in there. And it was just funny sending that to her. She was like, don't even mention that place to the realtor. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what else we're going to do. We bought it. We bought that place. And you know, we love it there. We took a year and did some remodeling, and it is homey. We really like it there. I'm serious. It's nice, but the time that it took to get there was difficult. We had some bumps in the road. Like, we probably slept on your couch at some point. All of you offered your home. Like, that's one of the other things about this church. Like, y'all were like, yeah, you stay at our house. At first, we thought everyone was just being friendly, but we realized it was the summer, and like everybody was like, you know who we could talk into watching our dogs for 2 weeks? We've walked every dog at Jack's Beach. When we go to the beach, we're like, oh, there's Dirk, there's the, you know, like we're like, hey, they're all running up to us. We're like the Pied Piper for puppies. And yeah, but the kindness we received, but it was, I mean, one of the toughest things was nothing felt like home. Nothing was home. You have, I mean, good days were good days. You can go to some place that's not yours on a good day. But on hard days, it was like, I don't want to be here. This has nothing comfortable about this. It doesn't have, like, it's not mine. I can't feel comfortable here. It's not, I don't feel peace and comfort because it's not my place. It's someone else's peace and comfort. And that's what there was a long time where it was that way. And that's kind of, I'm going to get into that today. Like, life is a journey, okay? And that sounds very commonplace. Like, you're like, yeah, I mean, that's a pretty common thing to say. Life is a journey. That he should probably say there's mountains and valleys. There's mountains and valleys. Yeah. But let's get into it. Let's jump into it. I'm going to be in John 6. You don't have to put the scripture up yet, but just to kind of set up John 6, there's some things going on here. Jesus has just done, at the beginning of John 6, a few incredible things. He's done a few incredible things. And he's got the 12, his followers, his closest friends. And then there's all these other people joining in. Like, they're coming along. They're like, man, this dude is seriously awesome. It starts with Jesus feeding 5,000 plus people with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And if you haven't read that story, read it. We're not staying there. So I just, to summarize, he fed all these people by taking something, blessing it, breaking it, sending it out, and all of a sudden they're like, why are we able to just keep feeding all these people? 5 loaves, 2 fish. He feeds the entire masses, right? And so people, what would you do? I'd be like, that's pretty awesome. I might need to see what he does next. I'm going to follow along. And the next thing we see happen in John 6 is Jesus had gone off to be alone, and his disciples went out in a boat. They went to cross towards Capernaum, across the lake, and then Jesus wasn't with them, and there's like waves and a storm, and it's getting a little uncomfortable, and they look over the water, and Jesus walks up to the boat on water. You've heard the story, right? Or you might have if you've never been here. It's a pretty wild thing to hear. Jesus walked on water to him, and I don't know what you would do if you were out in a boat and one of your buddies just rolled up that way. But that is like, I would start to be like, whew, something about this guy, something about him. And that's what leads us to our next passage in John 6, and it gets a little more difficult. Because Jesus teaches something that people started to struggle with. He said that he was the bread of life. That he was the one who would satisfy everyone. That you're searching for like earthly things and you want to be fed another way. I'm telling you that if you want satisfaction in this life, it's in me. I'm the bread. And if you read that passage, there's some things that I think people were struggling with. And that's what gets us into our passage here. Because Jesus is saying, I'm the bread. The search is over. John 6, 60 through 69, on hearing it, many of his disciples said, this is a hard teaching. Who can accept it? Aware that his disciples were grumbling about this, Jesus said to them, does this offend you? Then what if you see the Son of Man ascend to where he was before? The Spirit gives life. The flesh counts for nothing. The words I've spoken to you, they are full of the Spirit and they're full of life. And yet, there are some of you who do not believe. For Jesus had known from the beginning which of them had not believed and who would betray him. And he went on to say, this is why I told you that no one can come to me unless the Father has enabled them. From this time, many of his disciples turned back and no longer followed him. And then he looks at the 12. He says, you do not want to leave too, do you? Jesus asked the 12. Simon Peter answered to him, Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. We have come to believe and to know that you are the Holy One of God. He looks at his closest friends. Many are like, this is a difficult teaching. I don't know if, I've seen some stuff, but this is difficult. We're leaving. And he looks at the 12 and he says, are you going to leave? And Peter, just enlightened in this moment, he looks at Jesus. It's a beautiful moment when I picture it. And he says, Lord, to whom would we go? He says, we've seen too much, Jesus. We've seen too much. And all of that and who you are has led me to conclude that you and you alone have the words of eternal life. It's you. You are the one that would satisfy. The search is over. We found it in you. We're following you. So the going got tough and many walked away. Maybe y'all have had moments in your life kind of similar to this. I know I have, where you run into a problem and you're like, oh, am I really wanting to do this? You know what I'm saying? You're like, oh, this sounds like a good idea. And then you get it, when you start to get in the weeds of it, you're like, nope, not for me. I'll tell you one, maybe a little indulgent story, but it's the most embarrassing moment of my life. So, I, I was getting ready to enter into our student ministry at this little church in Lake Park, Georgia, which is just south of Valdosta. We don't have to get into that. It's Valdosta, whatever. And I'm pretty nervous, okay? Like, I'm a people person, but at this point in my life, I'm coming out of 5th grade into 6th grade. The worst thing in the world to me is to not fit in and to not be accepted. So I'm fixing to enter in with all these students who are older than me. Look, if you've got someone, a child that age, listen to me. You think it's easy. Make sure you're with them on this, and make sure that you're preparing them. You're entering into people who are, at that time, it wasn't split between, middle school students and high school students. I mean, I'm in there with people who are all the way up to 12th grade, and I'm nervous, and I don't know if I'm going to meet a friend, like the thought was like, I hope someone likes me and chooses to be with me. So I kind of talked to like Ann there, like, I don't know. Sorry, Ann, but I don't know. That was just, so I'm real nervous about it, and then my mom was like, Austin, you got to go. We did this thing called Youth Week, and we did a different thing every day. And the first night of Youth Week, what we do is they would have like a themed night, and it would start things off, and it was going to enter everybody in, and we would like sing karaoke and have dinner, and you dressed up like something. And it was pirate night. It was like, I don't know why we do the things we do, but it was like, oh, we're going to all dress like a pirate. And I was like, Mom, I'll go, but let me tell you something. I'm not dressing like a pirate. I'm just not going to do that. There's just too many chances for this to go badly, and I'm not going to dress like a pirate. And she's like, Austin, you got to participate. She loves me, and she's trying to, you got to participate. And I was like, I don't think so, Mom. And she was like, you got to do it. You got to do it. It's good for you to put yourself out there. She's like, I'll help you. So she helps me put this stupid pirate costume together. It is so bad. I do not look cool. I like took an old wig and we like cut it up for a beard. I'm like braiding it like I'm Jack Sparrow. I do not look like Jack Sparrow. I'm really short and tubby, and I look very much like Shmee from Peter Pan, not Jack Sparrow. And I go and I'm like, is this good? And she's like, it's so good. And I'm like, okay. And they, she takes me to church. And I'm like getting out of the car, and I did one of those, like I'm walking towards the youth building, and I did one of those like stop and look back. I'm a pirate. I'm not. And she's like, and I'm like, and I walk into the youth building. I turn the corner where all the students are. We're a few minutes late, so I'm walking in. I'm ready to join all the pirates and the crew, and nobody, not one person is dressed like a pirate. Not one. Because my mom misread the thing and I'm a week early. I showed up dressed like a pirate. The most embarrassing thing I've ever done. I just looked around. They're looking at me. It wasn't fun. No, hi, you're a week early. Silence. Complete. They're like, is that a pirate? And I just turned around and I ran to a phone somewhere in the building. And I'm like calling, I don't know, at that time, I'm like calling my mom. I'm like, Mom, she's not picking up. And you know what I said? I'm out. I walked home that day. I didn't even know at that age exactly where home was. But if you'd have been driving down 41 that day, you'd have just seen this pirate. It was difficult and I was out. I wish I'd stayed, because nothing was more life-giving than that student ministry and the way God started to draw me into himself through that place. But that was a difficult teaching. And in that moment, I was like, I'm out of here. I did come back, thank goodness. That was tough. But Peter, in this moment, in this passage, he says, I've seen too much. I don't care what it is. We're with you, Jesus. We've seen too much. You have the words of eternal life. Where else would I go for satisfaction? When I was 12 years old, my father, I had a good life. Good people, family was awesome. I have like only good fond memories. At 12 years old, my father was diagnosed with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease. I didn't even know what that was, right? You don't know what ALS is at 12. And life changed drastically. Suddenly and drastically, life became way different. I didn't notice it at first, but my mom did. I remember her asking. It's funny, the little snippets you remember. I remember her saying, have you noticed your dad's speech, changing a little bit? Like he's slurring his words a little bit. And I was like, I don't know. I didn't know. But over time, and not long, I started to notice it more. And if you knew my dad, he's the most outgoing, heck of a drummer. Incredible drummer. A lot of my love for music comes from him. He could sing. He was just the life of every room he walked into. And so this started to be really difficult because I saw this change. And if you know anything about ALS, it's basically your muscles stop working. They just slowly stop working. And for some people, it's very long suffering. For my dad, it started moving very quickly. And his speech started to struggle and movement started to struggle. And as a young kid, I'm trying to process what's happened because I've had no trial at all. Other than the pirate thing, like I've had no trial in my life, and I'm trying to understand this new feeling, this new thing that's happening. But thank goodness for my involvement in the students ministry and me starting to learn about Jesus. And I didn't know what was going on, but I knew that there was something about asking you will receive. And so I was like, well, you know what? This is an easy fix. I'll just pray to God. And he'll just get better. I mean, I just knew that was the way it was going to happen. I knew it with everything in me. I wasn't even worried. So that's what I did. I'm just, every night, it's part of my prayers. Lord, I pray that my dad would get better, that you would heal him. And I prayed this, and I prayed this, and I prayed this, and he was getting worse and worse. And I remember the moment I realized that he wasn't going to get better. I was walking, I had a friend coming over. My dad was struggling at this point, but he was still mobile and able to move a little. And my friend went to knocked on the door to come in. We're going to hang out that day, so his mom dropped him off. And my dad went to open the door, and we had a little teeny dog, and the dog went to kind of get out the door, and my dad tried to stop him, with his foot, and he fell down. Couldn't get back up. And I came around the corner and I saw my friend pick up my dad. And he used to hold me above his head with one hand. That's my dad. That's the bedrock of my life. He solved every problem I've ever run into. And I saw my friend pick him up, and it just destroyed me. And I went through the struggle, guys. Like, I started questioning everything I've ever read about God. This is a difficult teaching, okay? I want us to laugh and have a good time, but this is difficult. Because I couldn't understand. I'm starting to question his love for me. I don't understand why I've seen other miracles happen in my church. I've seen people pray and get healed. I've seen people that we didn't think were going to make it get better. What did I do that my prayer is not, what is there, a line of prayers up there? And if you don't get to mine in time, like I am upset and I'm struggling and I don't understand. The bedrock of my life is crumbling. He passed just over a year. He did. And what this created in me was a deep, deep fear of loss. I'm 13 years old. I've lost my dad in a really tough way because it was so just watching. His mind was the same. It was the same man I knew in there, but his body was falling apart. And it broke me down. I'm so I have this deep fear of loss now. And I remember it created this other thing, this one fear that became the paramount of fear, the pinnacle of fear in my life was, okay, because you know what? Jesus still held on to me. I meant to say that. Like, I was struggling, but there were things that God showed me and did, and he held on to me. He kept me near him. And I was like, you know what? I don't understand it, but I still love you. And I'm upset, but I still love you. But I'm struggling with this. But I believe in who you are and what you've said. But I'm struggling here. But it did create this pinnacle of fear. And that pinnacle of fear was, Lord, don't let anything happen to Mom. You know? I mean, I'm 13. And Mom was tough, man. She was so strong. And I'm like, God, don't let anything happen to Mom. And a few months later, she was diagnosed with lung cancer. And I am like, are you kidding me? Like, is this a joke? Is everything that I pray for just something that we're going to do the opposite of? And I'm struggling. This is difficult teaching. I'm realizing the pinnacle of the greatest fear in my life. And I'm looking and I'm hearing my mom's sick. And she got better, by the way. Hallelujah. She did. She got better. But I didn't know that was going to happen. And I say all that to look at you now and say, I'm a 13-year-old kid. And I'm struggling. And I'm looking for answers. What would you have said to me? What would you have said? It's okay. Don't worry about it. You know, like, things are going to be okay. I'm the worst about that. Like Lauren will tell you, we'll be going through like a tough day. And I'm like, baby, it's going to be okay. And she's like, that's not what I need to hear right now. Did that provide? And as I'm going through this, I'm like, oh yeah, that doesn't help at all. I'm always like, oh, my like tried true statement. The Lord will be like, we gotta, I'm trying to work through this, and I'm like, we'll figure it out. And I say that all the time. She's like, well, it's not figured out. You know what I mean? I do that sometimes. Was that what you have said to me? Trust the Lord. God is in control. Because I'm broken and I'm terrified. I'm thinking my mom's going to die. And I've lost my dad. And I've lost other people in my life at this point too. Things are happening and I'm just trying to understand. And maybe you are here. Maybe this is your story in a different nutshell. Like, if you're sitting here today, maybe you're like, what are you going to say to me, Austin? Because I'm going through it right now. Life is a journey. There's mountains and valleys, and all of us see the valleys. We all see them. It is common among all mankind, the valley. And either you've been there and you've come through it, either you're in it, or either there's a valley coming. That's life. It's part of it. What does the word say about this? John 16:33. I tell you these things so that in me you may find peace. And that's what I needed. I needed peace. In this life you will have trouble. But take heart, for I have overcome the world. In this life you will have trouble, but take heart, for I have overcome the world. This became a life verse for me, by the way. And I remember how important it was to hear that. But listen, guys, trouble is coming. And accepting Jesus and having a life, in the Christian life, is not marked by, at this point I accepted Jesus and everything's straightened out. In fact, it's quite the opposite. In the acceptance of who Jesus is, we take on the cross of Jesus ourselves. We say, my life is an offering, and whatever comes, whatever it may be, and suffering comes, it happens. in those moments, you can shine the brightest. You can change the world in your suffering, in your moments, because you can point to Jesus. And you can say, he's overcome it all. Everything I owe to him. I'm telling you, everything good in my life I owe to him. The first thing I want you to know, if you're, no matter where you are in your journey of life, I want you to know that Jesus knows your struggle. You are known. You are known. It says that through Jesus, everything was created, the word says. And since through him creating everything, it says you were knit together in your mother's womb, that you were fearfully and wonderfully made. You were thought about. You were planned. You were purposefully made. These things happened, and you're here, and you sit here now, and you're known. One of the biggest cries of my heart when I was struggling was, nobody knows what I'm going through. Nobody knows. But you are known by Jesus. I remember being at church one day, years later. I'll never forget this. There was a disaster that happened on our college campus. A young girl, and I've mentioned this before, maybe as I was leading. There was a young girl who had been hit while she was trying to cross the street. And she passed. And it was so brutal. And she was part of a sorority there. And the entire group of girls showed up to church that morning. And I'm sitting here going, what am I going to say to them? Just like I was asking you, I'm like, what am I going to say to them? They're dealing, she was here. And this happened, and it is so brutal. And I remember as we came down afterwards, just to stand with just a few of us to pray with them, there's a man in our church there that is he's a mentor to me, a good man, and a very country. A man of few words. He talks, real low, and I don't know what to say, and I'm like, what do I pray? And he just said, through tears, Lord, the shortest verse in the Bible is Jesus wept, and you put that there on purpose so that we would know in times like this that you know what we go through, and you understand, and you hurt with us. That's what he said. And it opened my mind and my eyes to the fact that I've been known my whole life. I've been known the whole time. The next thing I would tell you, if you're in the midst of deep, deep struggle, or to prepare for when you come up on it, is to practice gratitude. In life, we have to change our perspective on things. Because so often in our culture, in our generation, all we do is we blame and we're upset about the one thing that goes wrong. Listen, suffering, what it can do, if you come out on the right side of it, it teaches you gratitude. You start to say, thank you. Because where I could have been like, so many people would be like, I'm sorry about what you've gone through and laws and using your father. Nah. But over time, what I started to go through was, what an incredible dad I had. What an incredible life I have. Thank you, Lord, for the moments of peace that you've given me this side of heaven. The moments of goodness, the moments of laughter, this grace given to us all. It's good. Practice gratitude. Change your perspective. Because everything above Jesus was a gift. And the next thing I want to say to you is remember the cross. Remember the cross. And what I mean when I say that is if you were standing there that day looking at the cross, it wasn't a good day. It was the most brutal day in history. And these people who had followed Jesus, who had denied him and struggled with their faith, and just like we do, they're standing there and they're looking at the person they had pinned everything on, and they're looking and they're seeing him on this cross. It was the most brutal time in human history. But they didn't see the empty tomb. They didn't know what was coming. But we do. And that gives us hope. I cannot tell you how many times, over and over and over again, God has taken what the enemy meant for evil and he's turned it for good. I can't tell you how many times what was the worst day in my history, losing my father, struggling with this loss. I have been able to grow from it, learn from it, talk to someone who was in the same moment and say, I've been here with you. And Jesus has too. I mean, it's a life-changing thing to remember the cross. And that Jesus takes the worst and uses it for eternal good. All the time. All the time. That's who he is. It's what he does. It's the story of Jesus, and it's our story. He wants to do that in your life. And we're going through it, man. This is tough teaching. I don't know why some of these things happen. I do not know. And I'm no expert. I'm no expert in theology. I don't have every single answer to anything. But I'm an expert in this because it's tried and true in my life. You can ask Lauren. The reason I'm always like, it'll be okay. It's because I believe it. I believe it with everything in me. And it really doesn't matter what it is. There's a gift to seeing your greatest fear start to be realized. And it's that if you come out the other side of something like that, you start to realize that it was not enough to destroy me. I don't have a soul. I am a soul. I just have a body. I don't have a soul. I am a soul. You are a soul. And life is eternal in Jesus. That's who he is. He's not into the temporal. He's into eternal. That's the God that we serve and love. And it is worth it to make your life an offering. This is a tough teaching. I don't understand it all. I don't understand why things happen. Some of them. Some years later, I got a call. I was working at a church in Valdosta. I was the worship pastor, and it was my mom, and she was like, hey, I want to come see you. I'm in town. And I sat down with her, and she said, hey, my cancer's back. It's back. And it's pretty bad. And I'm like, I thought we figured this out, you know. But also, I was changed already. Jesus had already done a work in me. And it was, as hard as that time was, and it was difficult, it was beautiful too. Like, I got to take care of her. She took care of me every moment of my life. She protected me. She just was so good. And I got to go with her to every doctor's appointment and say, hey, I'm taking notes. You don't have to worry about all this. I got to bring comfort to my mother. I got to talk to her about Jesus. She knew him, but there was a moment of fear in her life, and she said, I don't know. We knew it wasn't good, and she's like, am I saved? And I said, do you believe that Jesus is the living Son of God? Do you believe in him? I do. Do you call him Lord? Yes, I do. I said, well, you ain't got nothing to worry about. You don't have a soul. You are a soul. She just had a body, and she passed. I got to hold her hand as she went. I got to tell her, it's okay. It's the hardest thing, but the best thing, to sit there by her and know it's all right. It is okay. It is okay. I will see you soon. And I know it. I believe it. I believe it's going to be okay because Jesus has overcome the world. This is a hard teaching. But where else would I go? Where else would I go? Yeah. He has the words of eternal life. He is good in all ways. And I may not understand it all. I don't understand it all. But I've seen too much. I've seen too much. It's all Him. I invite you to stand with me as we continue in worship. I guess if there's a fourth point of comfort in the struggle, in the valley, I would say it's worship. I've never worshiped harder. I've never enjoyed God more than when life was falling apart and I just raised my hands and said, it's all yours. My life is an offering. You can have it forever. Just if you do that, watch what happens. Jesus finds you in your struggle. He changes it, and He works the worst things for eternal good. Jesus, we love you. We love you. I'm so thankful that even when life is absolutely unbearable, you give me reason to live. You give me reason to be excited. You really and truly provide joy. And I can't explain it. It is so good. My life is so good. And it's all because of you. It is all you. I pray for everyone that they would find in you all of their satisfaction. Lord, come and move and find them here right now. God, I pray you move mightily. We love you.